damit können wir auch in die Reactions reingehen. Und zwar will ich mir 3 Videos anschauen, glaube ich. Ich habe mir ein bisschen was rausgeschrieben. Die sind alle schon angeguckt, laut YouTube. Stimmt aber nicht. Wir schauen uns nämlich heute den Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater First in Engine Look an. Die Skull Island Review von IGN. Das soll wohl das neue Gollum sein. Und den Alan Wake Launch Trailer, Alan Wake 2. Das ist auch richtig dolle, das Spiel. Da habe ich so viele Sachen drüber gehört. Aber das ist leider nur digital, ne? Da haben wir ein Problem. Da haben wir ein richtiges Problem mit. Scheiße, das ist wie Baldur's Gate. Deswegen kann ich das nicht zocken. Scheiße. Egal, wir gehen rein. In Metal Gear Solid Snake. Das ist der Boss. Okay, das sind eigentlich verschiedene Figuren. Jesus Christus. Pre-Alpha-Footage, ne? Aber in Engine-Look ist ja nicht gleich Gameplay. Ah, es sieht schon doller aus, ey. Junge, Junge. Wow, wart ihr auch gerade so verwirrt, wo er hängt? Ich ich habe das nicht erkannt, dass das hier eine Kante ist und dass das hier runtergeht. Ich dachte, das wäre erst dachte ich, das wäre der Boden, dann habe ich das gesehen, dass er hängt. Okay. Oh, das ist die Höhle von The Pain. Der Bienenmann. Boah. Da holt man Dr. Sokolov, glaube ich, raus, wo man das erste Mal Revolver Ocelot trifft. Ich freue mich sowas von. Ich freue mich wie bekloppt da drauf. Und damit haben wir kein Problem mehr. Ich kann Unreal Engine Spiele spielen, dank meiner neuen RTX 4070. Also RTX 4070 Grafikkarte. Meine alte 1080 Ti war nämlich einfach kaputt. Eigentlich. Die lief nur noch im Debug-Modus und hat überhitzt. Und dann hat die runtergetaktet. Oh, 10 Details you missed in the MGS3 Remake. Okay. Wer ist das? Python Salcon? Ja, okay, auf den hören
Check
wir.
out those leaves falling off Snake. Hey boss, was this something you used to see back in the original game?
I don't think so.
I thought so. What a time to be a Metal Gear fan. Just one day
Yes.
after the release of the Master Collection Volume 1, and we're already seeing the first in-engine footage of the upcoming remake for one of the most beloved Metal Gear games of all time, Snake Eater. I think we can all agree that the game looks visually stunning, even in pre-alpha stage. From the high level of detail on Snake's character model as he interacts with the environment, all the way to the natural flora and each and every animal being shown. It's awesome to see many of these familiar locations as a young naked Snake makes his way into the jungle of Tselinoyarsk. And while you might think you've noticed everything by watching this footage maybe once or twice, there are actually some interesting details you might have missed from this trailer. So in this video, we'll be covering 10 hidden details from the in-engine footage of Metal Gear Solid Delta, Snake Eater.
Mal gucken, wie viel ich gesehen habe. Was er überhaupt meint.
Python Salcon Detective Mode kicking in. As Snake hides in the grass during this scene, you can actually see leaves slowly falling off Snake as he proceeds to grab the KGB soldier. This can also be seen during another moment in the trailer, where we can once again see leaves falling off Snake with his movement. Now, much of the gameplay when it comes to Snake's animations appears to be based on MGS5's gameplay, which is definitely a great thing.
Das ist wirklich gut.
Something which might easily go unnoticed due to the vegetation covering it is the way Snake crouches and enters into crawling movement, which is very much like the transition we had in MGS5.
Ja. Aber warum sollten die auch nicht auf Ground Zeroes und Metal Gear 5 aufbauen? Was haben sie denn gemacht? Metal Gear Survive. Da geht Doppeldaumen raus an Konami,
On a
ey.
side note, the crouch walking movement is an especially important addition for the remake. This was actually already featured in the 3DS version of Snake Eater,
Nie
so it
gespielt.
was an expected addition for Delta Snake Eater. As Snake climbs back up during this scene, you can actually hear a tease of the voice performance of the one and only David Hayter, in what appears to be the same voice from the original game.
Am Arsch hört man da was.
A close-up of Snake's face shows numerous cuts and bruises that
Ja,
come as
das habe ich schon gesehen.
a great addition in detail when compared to just the blood on Snake's face in the original game. Whether the injuries heal over time or if they'll be implemented in the game's cure system remains to be seen.
Nein, nein. Die heilen, weil eigentlich kriegt er keinen Schaden. Der ist ein Superheld. Der hat nur schlecht gespielt da, deswegen hat er so viele
Snake's uniform also appears to be torn upon
Ja.
sustaining damage, perhaps from a
Aber ob das dann auch, ob die den Camo-Index drin haben, dass du dich immer umziehen musst? Also die haben ja verschiedene Camouflage angehabt. Aber ob sich das darauf
Sorry about that, guys. I
auswirkt?
couldn't help it upon seeing that crab. In a quick glimpse from afar, we can even see 3 item boxes in the small
Ah! Lol, da! Moment. Hier sieht man Itemboxes. Lol.
cave beneath the row bridge at Dolin Vodno. Judging by the virtuous mission from the original game, these items should be the XM16E1 weapon, MK22 bullets, and the Pentazeman. This further shows that Delta Snake Eater is indeed a faithful recreation of the original game. Speaking of item boxes, in the beginning of the trailer, we can even see an item box spinning in the background, which is pretty much a confirmation that this will also be retained from Snake Eater. In this trailer, we can also see yet another
What?
Snake Eater.
Ich weiß, dass ich gerade wirklich auch dahin geguckt habe und mich aber, ich muss hier gucken, hier über das Licht gefreut habe und hier unten geguckt habe. The fuck? Da ist, wie heißen die? Im Nintendo 3DS sind das Yoshis. Wie heißen die?
In this trailer, we can also see yet another Keraton frog,
Karaton?
this time in the cave that features the battle against the pain. This
Das wusste
Keraton
ich.
also appears to be placed in his original location,
Da war einer? Ich habe die nie
despite
gesammelt.
the vegetation being a bit blurry due to the focus on the snake. Raindrops can also be seen falling on the leaves, which continues to show the cutting-edge graphics that the Unreal Engine 5 is capable of.
Ja, aber ich habe gedacht, wir sehen so coole Sachen wie im Reveal-Trailer, wo man im Hintergrund so den Shagohod an 3 wie heißt das, Hubschraubern fliegen sehen konnte und so. Aber er hat alles
Even though
gesehen,
it's
was ich
barely
nicht
visible
gesehen
due to
habe.
the lighting, Snake can actually be seen wearing the iconic bandana during this particular scene, making it the very first time we're seeing it in in-game footage for the Snake Eater remake.
Das stimmt.
We hope you enjoyed these 10 details from the newly released trailer for Delta Snake Eater. Which detail did you enjoy the best from this video? And what are you looking forward to the most in this upcoming remake?
Das wird richtig dolle, ich sag's euch. Und das glaube ich nicht. Was ist das? Ey. Wer hat das gemacht? Das kommt für PC. Kong Skull Island. Nee, Skull Island Rise of Kong Reviewed und achso, bei. Also available on PlayStation, Switch and Xbox. Skull Island. Rise of Kong is ugly and full of bugs. Wer hat das verbrochen? Iguana B? Größtenteils negativ bei 63 Leuten. Oh. Oh, Horror ist im Angebot. Na, Iguana B, was habt ihr denn so sonst noch gemacht? What Lies in the Multiverse? Sowas. G.I. Joe. Head Snatchers. Pixel Perfect Man. Achso, das gehört dazu. Ey. Wait a minute. Ihr habt Elder Souls gemacht? Das habe ich auch schon gestreamt. Ausgeglichen. Entwickler Fallen Flag Studio. Wait a minute. Warum? Hä? Das ist ein anderer Entwickler. Ah, okay, weil das euer Game ist und das wird mit einem anderen Game im Bundle verkauft. Okay, ich verstehe. Dann ist wahrscheinlich das Eldest Soul das gute Game in dem Bundle. G.I. Joe, G.I. Joe, G.I. Joe. Das sieht mir fast nur aus wie Lizenzkram. So eine Schmieden mag ich ja am liebsten.
Here's the thing about King Kong. He's not just an ape, he's a giant ape. It's his defining feature in the 1933 movie that birthed him and the ultimate cause of his tragic demise.
Ja.
Picking up people, climbing skyscrapers, fighting dinosaurs, being huge is Kong's whole deal. Skull Island Rise of Kong is bad for a lot of reasons, but the main one is it's a game that
Der sieht
lets you
klein
play
aus,
as an
ne?
iconically large gorilla and somehow manages to make him feel exceedingly average.
Hä? Wie groß sind die Pflanzen? Ist das ein Baum? Ist das ein Baum? Hä?
Rise of Kong portrays him in the most bland way possible, and then it matches that mediocrity for everything else around him.
Ich glaube, wir machen so ein Sandwich mit gutes Snake Eater, schlechtes Kong und dann nochmal unten drunter zum Abschluss Alan Wake 2, was gut ist.
Rise of Kong lets you experience how Kong became King Kong, which was apparently by beating a lot of creatures to death and getting really angry while doing it. After swearing revenge on the giant raptor that killed Kong's parents, like some sort of gorilla Batman, you'll punch your way through each of Skull Island's 5 levels.
Was sind das für Riesen?
All of
Sind wir
which
in
are as
WoW?
massive as they are boring. There's absolutely nothing here you haven't seen before in 100 melee-focused action games. Combat gives Kong a light attack and a heavy attack, a dodge roll, and a block. While you'll earn some special moves along the way, there's never any reason to really use them.
Oh mein Gott.
Killing the boss at the end of each level unlocks new, but not particularly interesting, abilities, like a ground pound punch that hurts enemies and can break through certain rocks, or a heavy attack that can stun enemies and break through certain other rocks.
Oh mein
Each
Gott,
move
wie sieht
also
das
has skill
aus?
trees with attributes you can buy that provide some nominal
Ist das gewollt,
upgrades.
dass die
But
Vorschau
no
hier
matter
schon
what
leckt?
you upgrade or unlock, every fight is pretty much the same. First, hammer the light attack button to perform a 3-hit combo. Then, use Kong's only cool ability, a shoulder charge that shoots him forward a short distance and can temporarily stun enemies, to interrupt the attack of whatever you're fighting. When the enemy takes enough damage, hit another button to perform a finishing move. Repeat.
Seht ihr das? Wie verschwommen das alle ist? Nee, das wollte ich nicht. Wattbeleuchtung wie im Kino. Nee. Guck dir das mal an. Wenn er zurückgeht, wieder einfach 5 verschiedene Kongs sind.
When the enemy takes enough damage, hit another button to perform a finishing move. Repeat,
Boah,
repeat. There are other little elements,
Ey, irgendwas stimmt
such
mit
as
dem
an
Fell nicht, ihr
overly
seht das doch,
familiar
oder?
rage ability that powers up all your attacks, but they're only good for breaking up your combo or finishing a fight slightly faster. You're never required to think about how an enemy attacks and use a special move to deal with it, or to change up tactics based
Vor allem, ist das der erwachsene Kong oder ist das noch der jugendliche Kinder-Kong? Warum ist
on how
alles so
many
groß wie
or
King
which kinds of
Kong?
enemies are on the field. You play a giant ape who routinely kills literal dinosaurs. And
Ja.
Rise of Kong manages to make that prospect dull and lifeless. Thankfully, it's easy to just run past most enemies, and you'll probably want to once you realize that there are hundreds of them, and they mostly just waste your time. Skill points to make Kong stronger are only dished out at special Ascension events, which are fights in specific arenas that are closed off until you finish them. They come in two flavors: kill all the enemies in the area, or climb around and destroy the nests of flying
Da
dinosaurs.
sind wir ja Fan von,
Once
ne?
you're
Dass
done
man
with
in
the
einer Arena
objective, you
eingeschlossen
get a few
wird und
points to
dann
invest
ganz viele
into one
Gegner
of your
töten
meteor
muss.
upgrades. That means only boss fights and Ascension events actually help make Kong stronger, and the many, many other enemies are just pointless filler. The Ascension events at least try to change things up by throwing different combinations of enemies at you, but the repetitive combat means they all shake out exactly the same way, requiring you to spend about a second to identify the 2 or 3 combat animations the enemies have, and then avoid the ones that can actually hurt you.
Junge, wieder das
There are
Review
5 total Ascension
zerstört.
events in each level, and they're mostly pretty hard to miss. But like the rest of combat, they never feel satisfying or even particularly necessary to complete. Blow past one, and you'll miss out on a few points to unlock skills you don't really need, so who cares? The boss fights stand out at least a little from standard battles, with each including its own
So.
signature.
Jetzt. Jetzt kommt wahrscheinlich ein absolut riesiges Riesenvieh. Was gar keinen Sinn macht, weil King Kong schon so riesig
Mechanic
ist.
to shake things up. For instance, the big sandworm boss throws rocks out of the earth when it emerges to attack you, and you can then bait it into smacking its head into those rocks, stunning it. You don't need to do that. You can just stand there and wail on the thing, stepping back before it does one of its 3 attacks. But at least these fights attempt to engage your brain more than Rise of Kong's bog standard battles. They are still derivative, simplistic, and unimaginative, but they're definitely better than the low bar set by everything else. Kong is a gorilla, so of course, climbing and jumping make up the other half of Skull Island. Like combat, the platforming here is the most pedestrian version of ideas you've seen before. You'll jump over a few gaps and climb some vines. Exciting, I know. Movement is more inoffensive than annoying, but it's worsened by level design that is absolutely unhinged. Each level is huge, a meandering and winding series of pathways that branch, loop, and cut back on one another. Your only goal is to get from one side of the biome to the other, but Skull Island is constantly trying to confuse you along the way, with an in-game map that only serves to preview how lost you're about to get. My assumption is that there may have been a version of Rise of Kong where tracking down Ascension events, collectibles, and smart paths through levels was part of a bigger focus on exploration than there is in the final game. As usual though,
Was
that
ist denn
idea
mit
is
den Games in
executed
letzter
only
Zeit
in its
los?
thinnest and
Sind wir
most
jetzt wieder in den
simplistic
90er,
form.
wo nur
Instead, you just
Lizenzscheiße
get a
rauskommt?
confusing tangle of a level, and your main challenge is to avoid accidentally wasting time by making big circles back to earlier areas on the map. All of these elements, from platforming to combat, boss fights to skill allocation, are marred by Rise of Kong's many technical
bisschen die
issues.
Jalousie
Bugs
hochgemacht.
abound, and despite the mercifully short campaign taking me only about 5 hours altogether, There were points when it appeared to softlock and become impossible to finish at all. Kong got stuck in platforms, fell through waterfalls, and disappeared behind objects.
Ey du, das hatte ich aber auch in Fallen Order, Jedi, Star Wars. Ihr wisst, was ich
One
meine.
boss froze up after 30 seconds of fighting and never moved again, standing perfectly still while I 3-hit comboed him
Das hatte ich auch in Elden Ring.
into the ground. Enemies sometimes wouldn't spawn correctly during Ascension events, a problem that could only be solved by loading an earlier save and hoping it worked correctly on another go.
Okay, das ist
And midway
ärgerlich.
through, all the skill upgrades I had unlocked spontaneously relocked themselves, and the points I'd spent on them just disappeared. Luckily, none of those upgrades actually mattered.
Was ein Glück.
And as it's probably clear by now, Rise of Kong is an ugly game, with dated graphics and a mostly flat art style of gray rock walls and repetitive jungle trees. Its almost cartoonish vibe feels more like an attempt to mask its blocky low-res character designs rather than an artistic choice. Cutscenes frequently include animations of creatures moving around like they've been picked up and dropped somewhere else. And there's this ridiculous flashback moment that just pastes a square of a still image over the screen. Of a still image over the screen.
Wieso ist hier rechts, also, what?
There are also numerous points where you'll see trees not quite attached to the ground,
Yo!
or rocks just haphazardly duplicated on top of each other. It all just looks sloppy and rushed, providing more evidence of a game that was created without a lot of care. Skull Island is ugly and full of bugs, but the real trouble is that at its core, it's just boring. It makes no meaningful attempts to do anything new or clever, with mindless combat and pointless platforming that make it feel like a worse version of every action game from the last 20 years. This isn't the kind of bad game you can play to laugh at, or that took some cool swings but missed, or that
Alter
creates
Vater.
weird combinations of technical snafus that lead to unexpected but entertaining results. It doesn't even rate enough to be called frustrating. Rise of Kong is fundamentally disinterested in itself. A giant ape game that doesn't even care enough about what it's doing to make the ape feel giant.
Warte, das kriegt noch eine 3 von 10? Oh, Junge. Jetzt noch zum Abschluss was Gutes.
The killer left the heart next to the body. This wasn't some random act of violence. This was a ritual. A page of text written with a typewriter. Someone's been watching us.
How do you run from an idea? From a story that lives in your head? I need to escape this nightmare.
Wake says the story will change reality around us. Why are we written into the story? I brought you the Heart Witch. Show me the terror. FBI, drop the knife!
Habe ich Bock drauf. Ganz ehrlich. Habe ich Bock drauf, aber. Also, Hand aufs Herz, ich werde es mit dem ersten Sale kaufen. Aber es ist halt nur digital. Remedy hat's entwickelt, Epic Games published es und Epic Games ist halt egal mit physischen Games. Da können sie es besser auf ihrer Plattform verkaufen. Aber ich habe gesehen, es gibt dann wieder diese unsägliche, äh, wie heißt es? Technik mit der Taschenlampe, wo du die erst anleuchtest. Aber na ja. Man kann ja nicht alles haben, ne?